Okay, it is now time to begin the last segment of the show. Each and every Thursday or Friday we record, and it is time to give out my Week 6 NFL picks. We had an okay week. We were around 500. A lot of great games this week. Another Monday Night Football doubleheader, which I'm always looking forward to. And it was very weird without Thursday Night Football, having to have a Thursday night without anything to watch. But that just means more games on Sunday. So without further ado, here we go, Week 6 picks. 1 o'clock games. How about the 4-1 Baltimore Ravens heading to Philadelphia to take on the 1-3-1 Philadelphia Eagles? The Ravens right now are a 7.5-point favorite. And my prediction is this. I'm going to go with a little bit of an upset here. Not only are the Philadelphia Eagles going to cover this spread, I think they're winning this game outright. So many weeks in a row we've had an NFL game with just a crazy upset, and I don't know. I just think the Eagles are going to do it here. The Eagles almost beat the Steelers. If you listen to this show, you guys know I'm not that high on Baltimore. I think they are a good team. I think it is very fair to call them one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NFL right now. But I don't know. They're just not the same team this year as they are last year. But the thing with Baltimore is this. Each of their last 7 victories and 12 of their last 14 victories have come by at least 14 points. So while the Ravens are spotting the desperate Philadelphia Eagles slightly more than a touchdown, I'm not, most people aren't afraid to lay the points, but with that being said, Baltimore is super banged up. Marcus Peters, Ronnie Stanley both may not play. And I just think Carson Wentz is starting to play a little bit better now than usual. I think the Eagles not only win, but they cover as well. I think the Eagles pull an upset here. How about the 4-1 Chicago Bears heading to Carolina to take on the 3-2 Carolina Panthers? The Panthers right now are a 1.5-point favorite. And when I look at this game, I don't believe in either team, but the Panthers, I think, are going to win this game. I understand the Chicago Bears are 4-1, and Carolina's only favored by, half a point. It's just the Bears finally beat a team that wasn't awful when they beat the Bucs last week. Carolina, though, has more momentum. Teddy Bridgewater has been red hot the past 2 weeks. Robbie Anderson has turned out to be one of the better free agent signings in the whole NFL. Mike Davis has done a really nice job filling in for Christian McCaffrey, and I think Matt Rule has done a really nice job putting his team in the best position to win as possible, and I don't believe Nick Foles in going on the road and getting a road dub. I just don't see it. I like Mike Davis. I like Robbie Anderson. I also really like the way DJ Moore has been playing, and I think Matt Rule has this Carolina Panther team going in the right direction. I'm actually going to take them to beat the Chicago Bears on Sunday. How about the 4-1 Cleveland Browns heading to Pittsburgh to take on the 4-0 Pittsburgh Steelers? And I love this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and I think they're going to beat the Browns. My biggest concern entering the season with Ben Roethlisberger was his, injury history, but I did think as long as he could stay healthy, he will lead the Steelers team to be very good because of their defense, most likely. And their defense hasn't even been as good as I've expected, but I do expect them to be able to really focus and lock in on the Cleveland Browns rushing attack, which we focused on in the previous segment. And I just love TJ Watt, love Bud Dupree, love Stephon Tuitt, love Cam Hayward. I do think if Cleveland could have any advantage in a matchup they could exploit, it would be the wide receivers and the secondary, but I just don't believe in Baker Mayfield right now to be able to do that, because the reason why the Cleveland Browns are 4-1 right now mainly is their rushing attack. And even without Nick Chubb, I do think Kareem Hunt and D'Ernest Johnson are 2 very capable players. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it on the road against this Pittsburgh Steelers team. You also saw what Chase Claypool was really able to do last week against the Philadelphia Eagles with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 touchdowns. He was absolutely phenomenal to watch. I think he'll have another nice game here. I like Pittsburgh to not only win but cover, and Cleveland just takes a little bit of a step back. I don't expect Baker Mayfield to be able to outduel Ben Roethlisberger when he has to go up against the Steelers defense. How about the 1-3-1 Cincinnati Bengals taking on the 3-2 Indianapolis Colts? And the Cincinnati Bengals really haven't been able to protect Joe Burrow. I get it. But right now, the number one concern in terms of this game is we just have to hope it's played. The Indianapolis Colts have been dealing with a couple positive COVID tests, but if we do assume this game is going to be played, I think it's one Indianapolis has to win. They really didn't look good at all last week against the Cleveland Browns. Phillip Rivers, it's a concern, man. The more and more you watch him, the more and more he looks to me like he's just not a very good quarterback. And when you're comparing Indianapolis to some of the other really good teams, not only in the NFL, but let's just say the AFC and the AFC South, when you're comparing Indianapolis to Tennessee, Tennessee, to me, looks like the better football team right now. And I believe in a lot of components of the Indianapolis Colts team besides the quarterback. I think Jonathan Taylor has looked like a very good running back. I think Indianapolis offensive line is one of the 2 or 3 best offensive lines in football. I think their defense, even without Darius Leonard, whether he plays or not, is one of the better defensive units in football as well. And I think the Indianapolis Colts have an advantage here going up against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Last week was really the first time since he's entered the league. While I was watching Joe Burrow, I kind of just said to myself, yeah, I just don't know if this kid could do this right now. And it obviously isn't entirely his fault. He doesn't have an offensive line. He really doesn't have any that great weapons. Joe Mixon is okay at best, but A.J. Green looks like he wants to be traded. Tyler Boyd hasn't been great. T. Higgins is okay, but I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals right now are giving Joe Burrow a realistic chance to succeed. I think Indianapolis is still going to be in the playoff contention. In playoff contention just because of their defense and their offensive line, and I think they get the win here and cover over Cincinnati. How about the 0-5 Atlanta Falcons and Raheem Morris making his Atlanta Falcon head coaching debut, heading to Minnesota to take on the 1-4 Minnesota Vikings. And the Houston Texans last week fired Bill O'Brien, and they actually had a decent win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I do think there are going to be a lot of people who look at this Minnesota Viking Atlanta Falcon game and kind of say to themselves, same thing. Wow, maybe the Minnesota Vikings can do the same thing to the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons could do the same thing to the Minnesota Vikings. But I just don't think you could trust the Atlanta Falcons right now. One rule I have is I never just predict bad football teams to win games. And even though the Minnesota Vikings right now are 1-4, and I do believe in Bill Parcells' quote, your record says who you are what your record says you are, I do think the Minnesota Vikings are a little bit better than a 1-4 team. They almost went into Seattle, who most people do believe is one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the whole NFL, and really should have beaten the Seattle Seahawks last week. I personally didn't have any problems with Mike Zimmer's decision to go for it on 4th down. Unfortunately, they weren't able to take advantage, and the Seattle Seahawks ended up winning that game. And with that being said, I expect the Minnesota Vikings to have a bounce-back effort here. I can't see this team going in 1-5. I actually watched a little bit of the Atlanta Falcons last week against the Carolina Panthers, and I know there have been some games so far this season when you watch the Atlanta Falcons, in their game against Dallas and in their game against Chicago, both in which of those games they had huge leads and weren't able to close it out. They at least looked like good football teams for the first half of that game. When I watched this game against Carolina, before Todd Gurley had that one touchdown, I just really wasn't impressed with this team at all, and they're just not a very good football team right now. I don't ever expect them to be good, no matter who their coach is. It's not like firing Dan Quinn is going to solve all your problems. I like Minnesota to win and cover. How about the 1-4 Washington football team heading to New York to take on the 0-5 New York Giants? Right now, the Giants open at a 2.5-point favorite, and I think these are 2 even teams, but I do think the Washington football team ends up getting the cover and the win. Daniel Jones has been bad, worse than I've expected. And here's the crazy thing about the New York Giants. You guys realize over the last 2 or 3 years, they've obviously been a bad football team. I get it. They have also just been an awful, awful home team. And no matter who their opponent is, they can never seem to get over the hump at home. I don't see them being able to do that here. Kyle Allen starts. He actually looked decent last week. Both of these teams just aren't very good. I think the Washington defensive line takes advantage of the New York offensive line. How about the 1-3 Detroit Lions heading to Jacksonville to take on the 1-4 Jags? One thing I'll say about the Detroit Lions is that I don't think they're as bad as their record is as well. They are 1-3. They did go into Arizona and win 2 weeks ago, but couldn't beat the New Orleans Saints at home. I don't think Matt Patricia is a very good coach, but I actually do think Detroit, in their games that they've lost to the Saints, they lost to the Packers, and they've lost to the Bears. All those teams that are somewhat good. I understand they should have beaten the Bears, but at least Chicago has a really talented defense. And I still think Jacksonville, they're just not very good either. They haven't looked good since they beat Indianapolis in week 1. I think Detroit goes on the road here and gets a win and saves Matt Patricia's job for just a little longer. Okay, moving on to the next 1 o'clock game. How about the 1-4 Houston Texans heading to Tennessee to take on the 4-0 Tennessee Titans? And I think when you look at this game, it may be time to start taking the Tennessee Titans real seriously after they blew out the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday, in which they were handed some very difficult circumstances. And I totally understand that they gave themselves those circumstances, but I actually think the Tennessee Titans should beat Houston here. And I totally understand that Houston did look much better against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, much better than really it had looked all year. And it's really amazing what firing a coach can do for a team's, confidence and stuff. But I do think the other night when we saw the Tennessee Titans play with Ryan Tannehill leading the way, it really did give us and send the message that this Titans team is here to play with no one. And even though Houston did look fired up last week, I don't think they're consistent enough to give you that effort back-to-back weeks. The Titans really just rocked the Bills, but even when you consider the lack of their recent practice and the injuries that could catch up with them here, I'm not sure that Houston and their weak offense could exploit them. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans to win here and cover. I'll go Tennessee 30, Houston 24. How about the 1-3 Denver Broncos heading to New England to take on the 2-2 New England Patriots? And right now, the Patriots open as a 10-point favorite, and it does look like Cam Newton will be back and play under center at quarterback for the Pats. And this game was supposed to be played last week. The Broncos and the Patriots finally do appear ready to play each other here in week 6. And that extended break, I think, here could be a key factor of why not only do I think the New England Patriots are going to win this game, but I do think they cover the number as well. Both teams have used this opportunity to get healthier, but the Patriots already have 2 victories by double digits in their last 2 home games this season, while the Broncos could have easily lost to the New York Jets before their bye. And with Cam Newton set to return, I don't really see how anyone could really pick the Denver Broncos to win this game. And he was activated from the COVID-19 reserve list this week. Luckily for Denver, it does look like Drew Lock should be able to start at quarterback on Sunday, which should hopefully help them. But when other guys on the team like Melvin Gordon are out here getting caught for a DUI, that doesn't help anyone at all. So with that being said, I do think the New England Patriots end up finding a way to win this game over Denver and cover the number as well. How about the 4 o'clock games? Let's start it off. The 0-5 New York Jets will head to Miami to take on the 2-3 Miami Dolphins. And right now, the Dolphins are a 9.5-point favorite. And even though you're going to see that number right away and you're going to say to yourself, how is Miami a 9.5-point favorite here when they're just not that good? But then you look at what they were able to do against the San Francisco 49ers last week, and then you're kind of able to say to yourselves, wow, these guys may actually be really good. And we now live in a world where we have here the Miami Dolphins, who, keep in mind, last year had the league's worst point differential. I think they're going to not only beat the New York Jets here, but cover. Brian Flores is just a significantly better coach here in this spot than Adam Gase. And the Jets are just in a world of trouble. They're out here cutting Le'Veon Bell. They're really showing you that if you just want to leave the disarray and the circus of the New York Jets, you could just be their guest. And Sam Darnold is hurt. He's not going to play in this game. Same could go for the rookie first-round pick, Mekhi Becton. Le'Veon Bell's obviously cut. C.J. Mosley obviously opted out. So nothing is really going well right now for this New York Jet team. And I think there's a question to be asked here about the Miami Dolphins. Who are these guys? Because if you could go on the road to San Francisco like they did last week and just absolutely embarrass the NFC champions, the NFC team that went to the Super Bowl last year, like the Miami Dolphins were able to do, then you could maybe get yourself into the AFC wildcard picture. They also have a win over the Jaguars, so a win here over the Jets would get them to 3-3. And who knows how long it's going to take us to see Tua Tagovailoa on the field. We don't necessarily know when he's going to be there, but when you look at Miami, I don't think they're necessarily in a position right now to really succeed and ultimately pull the trigger on Fitzpatrick at quarterback. So if the Dolphins could win here, they get to 3-3, and maybe they could find themselves as a surprise playoff contender in the AFC. I have them beating the Jets, not only winning this game, but I have them covering the number as well. I think they win by a lot. How about the 4-0 Green Bay Packers heading to Tampa Bay to take on the 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And I think the Green Bay Packers right now look like one of the 2 or 3 best teams in football and the best team in the NFC. The Packers have been that team, the best team in the NFL through 5 weeks of play. Plus, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for Tom Brady and company. However, I do think Green Bay's running backs are going to have to be a big reason why they win this game. And Tampa Bay's defense is very good at stopping the run. Now, I mentioned it previously in this show. We don't know how effective Tampa Bay is going to be in that aspect. We don't know if they're going to be as good as promoted, just because there's a good chance that their top defensive tackle, Vita Vea, with him being out, he's out for the season for sure. He got hurt last week against Chicago. We don't know how good Tampa Bay's run defense is going to be. I think Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams running the ball for Green Bay could give them the opportunity to take advantage of a usually very good Tampa Bay run defense that's banged up. I think the Bucs could dominate against the run, but even if they do, Aaron Rodgers is going to be out here making plays. Mike Davis, the Panthers' back, did catch 8 passes for 74 yards against the Buccaneers when they played in Week 2. And Alvin Kamara had 51 receiving yards and a touchdown against Tampa Bay in Week 1. Jones, Jamal Williams have already combined for 28 passes caught, 254 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Green Bay. And when you throw that in with the bye as well, I think Green Bay wins here, and I feel pretty confident about it. Tampa Bay, to me, looks like a 9-7 team, and even though I do think they're a playoff team, I don't take them seriously as a realistic Super Bowl contender. With the way Tom Brady's been playing, the offense just really isn't dynamic enough for me at all. How about Sunday Night Football? The 4-1 Los Angeles Rams will head to San Francisco to take on the 2-3 San Francisco 49ers. And if the depleted 49ers can't get to within a field goal of the Eagles at home or the Dolphins at home, how could we expect them to hang with the Rams, even with Jimmy Garoppolo much likely healthier? Well, I'm just going to say this. I believe in Kyle Shanahan. I believe in George Kittle. I believe in Raheem Mostert. I believe in Robert Saleh. And I do think the 49ers, with Deebo Samuel back as well, I think they win this game. And I know the Rams are really good. They've been a team America has really jumped on here now. I just don't see them being as good as a lot of people think they are. I think they're really good, and I do think Jared Goff is an underrated quarterback. I just think the law of averages come out here. The NFC West is really tough. I have a hard time believing the 49ers are going to give as poor of an effort this week as they did last week, and I actually do think they're going to come out here and beat the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday. I don't know what it is about this game. I just feel an upset here. The Rams, once again, they've been better than I've expected, but I'm just not willing to sit here and just give them so much credit for beating the Washington football team and the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Giants. They really could have lost that Giant game as well. Jared Goff has played well. Darrell Henderson has played well running the ball as well. I'm just feeling an upset here. Give me the Rams to lose on the road on Sunday Night Football to the Niners. How about the first Monday night game? I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs at 4-1 to go into Buffalo and beat the other 4-1 team, their opponent, the Buffalo Bills. And I just have a tough time thinking Patrick Mahomes, after having a pretty bad game last week, I have a tough time believing that he's going to come out here and play this poorly again. I just don't see it. Tyreek Hill Travis Kelce. I think the boys get the job done for the Kansas City Chiefs. I just cannot ever pick Josh Allen to outperform Pat Mahomes in a big game. I will take Buffalo to lose, Kansas City to win, and then the final Monday Night Football game. This is a good one. How about the 3-2 Arizona Cardinals heading to Dallas to take on the 2-3 Dallas Cowboys? And the Cowboys have yet to cover a number this year. I actually think that's going to change this week as well. I'm going to go with another underdog and take the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Arizona Cardinals on Monday Night Football at home. I understand Kyler Murray played well last week with DeAndre Hopkins and without Dak Prescott, but I'm just going to have a feeling that Andy Dalton gives the Cowboys some hope here. And I think Andy Dalton, led by Zeke Elliott and Amari Cooper, proves to be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. I think Dallas comes out here and beats Arizona. I just don't think Arizona is that ready for prime time just yet.